Okay, thank you. Let's see. Public participation guidelines. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. Adam, if you could just let us know your last name. Oh, you need to unmute. Still muted. I'll let you work on that, and then I'll call you in a minute. I'll keep reading this. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Brooke Moore, Vice Chair of the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust. Adam Lockley. Thank you, Adam. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rima Sherry?
Here.
Penny Dye?
Here.
Allison Mitchell?
Here.
Okay. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tucker Holland?
Here.
Ken Bogrand?
Here.
And anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Andrew Vorse?
Here.
Ann Cuspa?
Present.
Billy Cassidy?
Here.
And Erica Kiley? Erica, if you want to, that's okay. And Adam Lockley, you can hear
Yep.
us, Adam? Okay,
Yes.
great. It is not required that you guys speak, but I want to give you the option to if you'd like to on your application. So good afternoon. This open meeting of the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust. Adam, if you can mute now
Okay.
until we're ready for your item, that would be great. Thank you. Ensuring public access does not for this meeting, the Nantucket Affordable Housing Trust is convening by video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. And we tend to be a little more informal on that. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. For items with public comment, after the members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote taken at this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So with that business taken care of, I would like to just check that the members who joined while I was reading that are able to hear me. Dave Iverson, can you confirm?
I can confirm.
Oh, great. And Don Holgate.
Yes, thank you.
And welcome Howard Dickler, a member of the public. And I think that accounts for everybody that I see on my screen. Terrific. Okay. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Penny and Dave.
Rima.
Although Oh, Rima and Dave, I saw a lot of lips moving. Okay, all those in favor, Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Penny Dye,
Aye.
Allison Mitchell,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Don Holgate,
Aye.
and I vote aye, so that's unanimous. Okay, approval of the minutes is held to October. This is the moment where we provide opportunity for public comment for items not otherwise on the agenda. Does anyone have any public comment? Seeing none, we move on to item 5, which are closing cost assistance program applications. The first of which is Lockley and Walker for 10B Larrabee Lane in Nantucket. So are there any questions or comments from the board? And then I'll give the applicant an opportunity to speak if he would like. Dawn?
I'm just going to recuse from this. I have a conflict.
Okay, thanks, Dawn. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Okay. Adam, we'd like to give applicants an opportunity to speak. If you have anything you'd like to say in the process, or you're welcome to just wait and see what happens too.
No words, thank you. I'll just wait. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thanks, Adam. Okay.
Yep.
So having no comments from the board, I would anticipate a motion.
So moved.
Okay. Do you want to be more precise, please?
Sorry, I was distracted. Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the CCAP application for the Lockley and Walker families for 10B Larrabee Lane.
I'll second.
Okay. Tucker, do you need any more detail? Okay, great. If there's no further comment, I'll by roll call vote. Penny Dye?
Aye.
You guys moved around. Allison Mitchell?
Aye.
Rima Sherry?
Aye.
Dave Iverson?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So that's unanimous with a recusal from Don. Okay, congratulations, Adam. Good luck.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Kylie CCAP application for 78 Skyline Drive, unit number 1. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none. Erica, did you want to say anything?
No, just here to listen.
Okay, all right, great,
you.
thanks. That kind of puts people on the spot. It's so funny. So with no comments or questions, do I hear a motion from the floor?
I'll make the motion again. I'm unmuted. I'll make a motion that we approve the Kylie application for CCAP assistance for 78 Skyline Drive, unit number 1.
Okay, great. All those in favor, Penny Dye?
I'll second.
Aye.
Oh, sorry, second from Dave.
Second
My
that.
apologies. Yeah, thanks, Dave. Penny Dye?
Aye.
Rima Sherry?
Aye.
Allison Mitchell?
Aye.
Dave Iverson?
Aye.
Don Holgate?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that's unanimous as well. Congratulations, Erica.
Thank you all.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. And you're welcome to sign off. No need to stick around unless you want to. You're welcome to stay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is an update on 3 Quail Lane, which was a closing cost assistance application that we approved recently, and there's been some complicating factors involved. And who wants to take this, Ann or Tucker first?
I mean, I'll let Ann, just update the board, but this was a closing cost application that we had approved back in August for a qualified buyer, and it subsequently has come to light that there are some issues with the way the present covenant owner has been managing the property and so forth. And I'll let Ann, speak to that, but it will delay the originally anticipated closing on this property. It will not happen as we had anticipated it happening.
Okay, Ann.
Okay, hello. Ann Cuspa, Executive Director of Housing Nantucket. We are currently working with the owner of 3 Quail. There are numerous violations suspected. So we're trying to come to an agreement about the like, how do we transact this unit and get it back into compliance with the covenant program regulations. It's a work in progress. It's a lot, but there's a closing scheduled for tomorrow, actually. We won't know until this afternoon at 4 p.m. whether we can transact, if it can, these issues can get resolved. I wasn't really prepared to speak on this today. I didn't realize that that you would need this, so I don't have anything really quite prepared. All I can assure you is that we're doing our best to impose the penalties that are in place for us to ensure compliance. So that's happening, and I hope at your next meeting we'll have some resolution and some so we can move on. So I don't know really how else to answer this question.
Thanks, Ann. Dave?
Can someone explain the nature of the violations?
Sure. The violations involve a residency violation and a renting out the unit violation. So these are suspected violations that we've been working with the current owner and actually have forced this sale. So I don't really know how much more I should say on the public record because it might go to a lawsuit. So I just don't know really, without having consulted a lawyer just yet, like what is responsible for us to talk about.
Okay, Dave?
I just, you know, and I don't know all the facts, but I'm just going to throw it out there that I think that we should pursue this in a loud and public way to set the standard here. And I've heard some things, and I'm not going to go into it, but if someone is making the money on the back of a program that was designed to help locals get safe and secure housing, that is unforgivable. And we need to make sure that people understand that either this board or Ann will pursue that to the end. I think
the fines are significant. They're quite hefty. So at $600, that's 2 violations. So there, we can charge $300 per day per violation. And the amount of days of the violation that we suspect is around 310. So at that number, it's a really stiff fine. And we just need to get the owner to agree to pay that as part of the closing cost. But if he doesn't, then we're going to go through with the lawsuits.
Yeah, I mean, and I just, my problem is here's a situation where someone hasn't abided by the rules. They've maybe profited off of it. And then they're also going to profit when they sell the house, when the house was never used, or maybe just used in part of a time for what the program was designed for. And I that's a bitter pill to swallow, especially for people that may know about it and say, well, the guy got away with it and made some money still. So I feel like people are taking advantage of this on the back of the community. And I just find it terrible.
Okay, Dave. Rima?
So a question, this has not yet closed, so funds have not been dispersed for closing, or it closed and then went into violation?
Ann or Tucker?
Yeah, so the transaction is not closed with the new buyer, and this has zero to do with the new buyer, just to be clear. But the funds that we approved have been sent to the attorney's escrow account as they normally would be, because we anticipated there would be a closing tomorrow. So we wanted the funds to be available, but they have not been expended, obviously, at this point.
Penny?
Yeah, I guess this is a question, but isn't the only leverage we have against the current owner, besides legal, doing some sort of lien on the property while they still own it?
And do you have,
Yeah. So we have the fines that we can impose. So basically we have a dollar amount that we are saying, these are what you owe in fines. In order for us to allow this transaction to take place, we need to know that these fines are going to be paid to us through the closing settlement. So if he agrees to that, then we know that we have, settled the fines on him, and that's a significant amount of financial hardship to him.
Just a follow-up question. Do you know that there's enough equity there to do that and pay off the
Yes,
debt?
there is. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. So if the owner does not agree to do that, then we have two options. We can foreclose on the property through the authority mortgage that's recorded. So that's the housing authority's no money mortgage, that basically it's the teeth of the covenant that just says, if you don't follow the program rules, we can foreclose on the property. And that's one option. Option two would be to pursue a fraud lawsuit against this person. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really feel that comfortable talking about this because I haven't even talked to a lawyer yet. But these are the options that we're considering at this time on how to, as I've heard other speakers say at this meeting, I mean, we agree. We need to be very serious and send a clear message to the community that you can't take advantage of the covenant program or else the whole thing falls. So we get that, and just assure you we're doing our best.
Just, is there something in place to keep the current owner from conveying the property?
Yeah,
Is there
they
some-
have to go through our office. We need to issue a certificate of compliance in order for a covenant transaction.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for.
okay. So I'm gonna, we put this on the agenda because it's out there in the community and we wanted to make sure that that the community's aware that we're aware of it. And I would like to suggest that this board consider putting on a future agenda a conversation with Housing Nantucket about monitoring and compliance, and just learn what you're doing and see if there's any ways to tweak that to get ahead of situations like this in the future. Would be,
Yeah, we can do
but not
that.
today.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Brooke.
No, that's okay.
We have been working with this. It's a very long story that I don't know that we want to get into, and I can, yeah, but there's been a lot of back and forth. The violation, from what we can tell, didn't start until November 17th, and we've been working, it's a lot of he said, she said, and going on trust until it became clear that we were not, the owner was not being forthcoming with us. And that's when we started to lean in really hard.
Okay, thank you. And Ken, did you have a comment before we move on along? I don't want to absorb too much time on this.
It was along the same lines as you were suggesting. I think that it's really important, since we're very much involved in being a sponsor of this program, to understand what the monitoring program that Housing Nantucket has in place relative to all of the 100 covenant houses that we have, to be able to avoid these kinds of situations occurring. So whether or not, whatever it is, I think it's important for the Affordable Housing Trust to understand what the process is and how it's monitored.
Thank you, Ken. So I'm gonna move on to the next item on our agenda with a placeholder for a future conversation on this, particularly as regards to public trust in subsidized housing opportunities on Nantucket. So, okay, So moving on to the next item, and Andrew's here with us for 2 items today. The first of which is the Closing Formation Assistance Program mortgage subordination for the CFAP loan that we already had approved. And Tucker, if you want to walk us through it real quick.
Yeah, I mean, this is a routine request. The board will recall in other instances where we have issued, generally it's been our closing cost assistance to a party who in the process is going through a refinance of one form or another. The banks often require that we acknowledge that we subordinate our loan to the new refinance. So this is the same exact case. So we would ask that the board approve the subordination of the CFAP mortgage to this new loan, which is actually going to do the work in conjunction with creating a covenant home. So obviously, we're providing $10,000. That definitely makes a difference, but it doesn't a lot of the time get the whole job done. So this is simply additional funds to make this a reality for another Nantucket family on a year-round basis.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none. Andrew, do you have anything to add, or it's pretty pro forma?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I'm here. This is a personal matter. It's not anything to do with my official title. And thank you, board members, for the loan. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. So Penny?
Yeah, just what's the property address, please?
Tucker or Andrew?
40 Essex Road.
Thanks. It just wasn't on our agenda.
Okay. I would entertain a motion from a member of the board.
I'll make the motion again. We approve covenant formation assistance program loan of $10,000.
No, it's a mortgage subordination.
Mortgage subordination for, right, $10,000 for 40 Essex Road.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Rima. All those in favor, Penny?
Aye.
Rima?
Aye.
Dawn?
Aye.
Allison?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
And I vote aye, so that's unanimous. Okay, great. And Tucker, can we have the conversation about granting you authorization to do these without having to put them on the agenda today, given how it's on the agenda, or should we just do that in October?
Why don't we add it to the list? We've now got 3 items for our October meeting, but yes, for these sorts of routine things, I think that it would be useful to, authorize staff or the chair or vice chair to, sign off on them. And if there is something comes along where there's a real question mark, then obviously that could come to the board. But if it is routine, it would be efficient.
Okay, so we'll discuss that in full and put it on the agenda for a vote next meeting in October. Okay, so quickly, housing production plan update. Tucker, you're on again.
Yeah, so we have provided Judy and her team with what's called the transmittal letter to DHCD. They moved offices back in August. They've had a lot of issues like with their computers and internet and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, the point is that it's going to be sent out probably on Thursday of this week to DHCD, which again is still well in advance of the expiration of our current plan. But otherwise, it's all good to go.
Okay, terrific, thanks. Okay, so the next item on the agenda, item 8, is a zoning bylaw review and discussion. And I invited Andrew to come today to help us understand what already exists in our zoning bylaw to support the creation of year-round and affordable housing. What are the elements of our existing bylaw? And then to perhaps offer some areas where there might be opportunities to tweak the bylaw that might be useful within our existing zoning bylaw framework and the goals of this board. And Andrew, I will turn it over to you. Thank you very much for coming today.
Well, thank you. So I did want to follow up because I do believe in your housing plan, there were some ideas that were discussed for, future action. It is town meeting time. This is when ideas for upcoming warrant articles sort of get started. I just saw recently that the time frame for like citizen articles is out now, and that it's sometime in November. I don't know exactly, but again, now is the time when the articles start coming together.
November 15th.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks. So now November 15th, and that's going to be for citizen articles. So if the board wanted to sponsor an article with 10 signatures, that would be your deadline time for that. If you want the planning board or the board of selectmen to file the article for you, the deadline is later. So so there's more time. Yeah, again, if it's an article that's sponsored by one of the boards. If you want the planning board to sponsor the article, just understand that ultimately the selectmen have the final say on the warrant. So the planning board could agree to sponsor something, but the board of selectmen could still say, we don't want to include it on the warrant. Not that they do that. It's a very rare thing, but I just, just so everybody understands the process. Okay.
Thanks.
So some of the things, I think the most, probably the two sections of the bylaw that have created the most housing are the workforce housing allowance. The workforce housing allowance is basically like a 40B with local control. So it gives bonuses to certain properties in 3 zoning districts that exist. Basically, the R5 is the workforce housing bonus, the R5 zoning district. And then the workforce rental district is Mid-Island, commercial Mid-Island area, and commercial neighborhood districts. So again, these are local bylaws, so they have all the local reviews like HDC and all the local control is. So these are special permits issued by the planning board. So they do need a supermajority vote. And the examples of where these projects are, so we have the Richmond rental projects. We have 6FG. And we have the Richmond ownership project. So all those projects have utilized the workforce housing bylaw. One thing about this particular bylaw is it was geared towards sort of larger tracts of land. So it set minimum tracts of land of 30,000 square feet in the commercial Mid-Island district and 60,000 square feet in the CN and the R5 district. And I know that some of the properties that you've identified in your housing plan, in your housing production plan, includes some properties that, some privately owned properties that are in those particular districts. So they have, potential opportunity to utilize that bylaw. One suggestion that I believe came out of that production plan was to expand it to possibly other zoning districts. And I believe the R10 district is one of the possibilities that they suggested that we look at. R10 or possibly even R20. So what we would do is, again, sort of look for, are there larger parcels in those districts that might, be good candidates for this kind of a development that would utilize this. And basically what you're getting out of at least the home ownership, you're getting 25% affordable, meaning 25% for 80% households. And the same with the renter, again, the rental units, and there's a bonus here. So you're getting a bonus. You're getting higher density in any of these particular projects, but that density is offset by the 25% rent, generally rental or ownership units in the development. Okay.
May I interject and ask, what's the bonus typically, like in terms of the increased density? Is there a framework for that?
Yeah, it's basically, it's like, it's sort of equal to the 25%, like the gain in the units.
Okay.
See what I mean? So the bonus is, so you get the units that you would have gotten in a market rate development plus the 25% of the, at the 25% additional units that are now affordable. You see?
Mhm. Thank you.
So again, if that's something you want to pursue, I think you should maybe think about what's included in the housing production report and what do you think, timing wise, and, have a discussion among yourself about like, what are the priority recommendations you might want to pursue.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Should we entertain questions from the board on that one
Sure.
before you move on?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay. See. Oh, Raymond.
Are there any potential in R10 or R20 that kind of stand out to you? You don't have to name them, but do you, I mean, in your familiarity,
Well, recent
to go there, or should we just be looking?
Well, again, so if a private, a decision to use the bylaw or not is made voluntarily. It's not a mandatory decision, right?
Right.
So in the case of Richmond, in the case of the town, we voluntarily chose to use those particular bylaws, right? So there has been recently like for 20, there was a recent subdivision, I think of, I want to say 8 lots that, there might be interest, if that bylaw applied in that particular area, that might, maybe the owner could have utilized the bylaw if they chose to, or maybe you as the trust, if there are certain like pieces of land that you would target to say, we want to buy that and pursue this particular bylaw.
Dave?
Just through you, Madam Chair, ask Andrew, what is his sense of that change? Like, do you think it would actually really create more opportunities? Would people take advantage of it?
Andrew, are you thinking or waiting for me to?
I'm thinking.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, again, if it's motivating, you have a motivated buyer that's what their intent is. I mean, it's got to be, if it's not by a public entity or a nonprofit that's sort of, utilizing the bylaw and motivated to create housing, it's going to be a voluntary decision by a private entrepreneur, right? So, I mean, I think percent, construction is tough to offset. You've got to offset that with, a profitable, that's making enough profit to cover the loss to build that particular house. We do have examples that were done through the 40B process. So, I mean, the general thought is I'm not sure how much land is available in R10 as opposed to R20. We have to sort of take a look, if that's something you want to pursue this year or interested in, we would have to take a look at that and see what might make sense.
Thank you.
Okay, if there were a private nonprofit that wanted to do real estate development, creating opportunities for them to use this in other districts might be advantageous for a group whose purpose were to create more housing and allow that bonus.
Yeah, a good example would be the third Fairgrounds Road property, right? That was in R10. This particular bylaw is not available, in that zoning district. I mean, you did use the sort of cluster version,
Flex.
the flex development there. But it might be a different type project, it would be another tool to use in an area like that. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Okay, any other questions before we ask Andrew to continue on? Okay, what else you got for us? Anything else?
Well, that we have, unlike many other towns, we allow multiple dwellings. Duplexes can be owned separately. You can basically create a duplex in any district except R1 with fee simple ownership, which would have a common wall in between. It's not something that is always, I haven't seen a lot of these, but I think it's an opportunity. Depending on where where you might look at land or whatever. And I think in general, we found that fee simple ownership is more appealing, easier to get financing, which is why, the change to the covenant from a 2-unit condominium, for example, to, fee simple ownership has been a good program. And I think, some creative design of duplexes, where there's, I think, the townhouse style duplex where there's actual, maybe more privacy than the over under type unit lends itself pretty well to that kind of a development. So I know you've got some different pieces of land, but that kind of design, I think, is something to maybe prioritize. I don't know if there's any changes that might be worthwhile looking at with the accessory dwelling or tertiary dwelling. We do run into sometimes size limitations. The board has had a discussion that maybe our existing size, I think accessory dwellings are limited to 550 and tertiaries are limited to 650. Might be something that we either look at for a specific finding to issue a special permit on, or maybe there's a range that we might raise those to make them more attractive. We've done many changes to the accessory apartment bylaw. It used to require, have a lot of limitations on who could live there and require deed, filing deed restrictions and other things that basically worked to not encourage their creation. Those have been taken away. But we haven't seen a lot of people utilizing that bylaw. It's something that, I think that we want to encourage where we can, especially where these could be in existing structures, where you could utilize a basement, utilize a second floor in an existing structure for an additional unit. I'm trying to remember, Tucker, are there any other, I think there was a suggestion that the parking requirement is high. It was done somewhat deliberately for at least market rate duplexes that we found were being sort of overcrowded and spilling out into adjoining streets and covering lots. And I think there was I don't know if you've all read, there's a pretty good discussion about parking requirements, at least that was out of Greater Boston, that requiring them becomes sort of a barrier to housing creation in a lot of areas. So at least maybe relaxing the parking requirements where affordable housing is being proposed might be something to think about. I'm not sure we're going to do that for market rate situations, again, where the density creates problems with the existing property use. But I believe that's included in your report as well. Tucker, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if there's any other things that come to mind. Plan.
I mean, I think one of the things that was talked about in the report was, like land that allows for like a tiny house village sort of concept that had been part of Isaiah's companion articles a few years ago. The one passed, the other didn't, needs work, but that's the other thing that I can think of.
Right. Right. And the problem with the tiny house, which is something, other than changing that to allow tiny houses as a vehicle, as opposed to a structure under zoning. So to allow a tiny house more as a recreational vehicle. There are building code issues in Massachusetts that continue to block tiny house production. It's something that Julian and Dylan have filed. They filed sort of an omnibus housing bill to change those building codes, but it still hasn't advanced. The issue with sort of opening up to vehicles does create a situation about mobile homes that have been sort of like not allowed for years. So it's something that we have kind of stayed away from, but always open to thoughts about that if that's something people want to think about.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. I'm going to go to Dawn first as a member, and then Howard after that.
Hi. So one thing I've been thinking about that that may help create more year-round housing situations are the tertiary dwellings. Right now, there's really no restriction on how they can be rented. And I don't know if there might be some appetite for going forward to have those. I know that you do have to have an owner occupied one unit on the property. But I think the idea was that those very small units would be more likely to go towards either year-round occupancy or even seasonal occupancy. And currently you can rent them in any way that you wish, so they can become weekly rentals. And that just might be something that we want to consider putting a limit on. I kind of go back to the like the units out on Nobody Farm Road that were created under the multifamily overlay district. Those were restricted to, I think, either seasonal or year-round occupancy. So it gave you two options. It could be seasonal housing or year-round housing, but never really short-term housing. And then the other thing that I'd like to maybe see if we could tweak a little bit is some of the like apartment building scenarios, like where like 7 Surfside used the apartment building bylaw in the CN zoning, where we could promote even more bonuses for really small units, like for studio apartments. I think that there's a real need for that type of very small housing where one person can get their own space.
Great, thanks, Dawn. Maybe there's some combination of a bonus on the square footage on the tertiary in addition, if it's rented year round. And I guess my other question would be, how would that be enforced? How effectively does that get enforced in the end?
Well, and I appreciate so much that you're bringing that up, because the enforcement issue, you know, is a huge factor here. The no-bidder ones have been, you know, difficult. We do, you know, what if we find out about it, we certainly do take action, you know, to remind them. And there have been requests to lift that restriction, which the planning board has not been willing to do. But most of the enforcement will come from complaint-based. You know, it's not something that we are sort of requiring a level of certification. And, you know, certainly with our current staffing, that's something that is just unlikely. You know, if there needs to be, and, you know, maybe this is part of your future discussions, more active enforcement. I mean, that may have to be a department or an area that receives more resources in the future.
Okay, thanks. Howard?
Thank you, Brooke. I wanted to ask Andrew about extending the workforce bylaw to the R10 and R20, whether he sees any downside to that or any potential objection to that other than the obvious increase in density.
Andrew?
That don't see a downside to that. I think, you know, it is the same argument about, you know, where it's more density, or, you know, what we've heard is sort of, oh, Mid-Island, like, for example, Mid-Island is, you know, getting all the density, when, you know, we've taken a very deliberate step to structure our housing, you know, in an area that we've already defined for future growth, and that's the town overlay district. And, you know, the other option of spreading, you know, or encouraging too much density in the area we've identified as rural, is it does start to, you know, change that particular character, way that we've taken a vote on already. So I think it's where I don't see it. So I guess that's a long answer to your question, that I don't see, other than, you know, the anti-density type arguments, which are still very strong.
Okay, thanks. We have a lot on the agenda today, and I want to just say thank you, Andrew. That's a really great overview. And I'm wondering if there's any board members who have an interest in perhaps meeting with you outside of our regular meetings and maybe coming back to us in October with some more detail and perhaps recommendations on what we might pursue. Is there anyone on the board who's interested? Rima? Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else. Up, Dave?
I'll
Okay.
join in with Rima.
Okay, great. So if you guys would, Andrew, if you're willing to do that, meet with those guys and maybe have a little more thorough conversation about the details, and come back to us in October, guys.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for your time today. Okay, next on the agenda is projects updates for 31 Fairgrounds and Wildflower at Richmond. Tucker, I'm going to hand that over to you. Oh, and Tacoma Green.
Sure. So we have Ann Kuspa and Billy Cassidy both here with regard to 31 Fairgrounds. So I'll turn it right over to them.
Thank you, Tucker. Ann Cuspa again. from Housing Nantucket. I guess I'm not sure if Billy wants to just talk about it. I don't see your mic coming off. So I will relay what has been relayed to me, which is that our applications for the AAB, so that's the disability units, so it's required for those units. Those have been submitted to the Boston office, and we expect to be heard on October 18th. Those are the 2 remaining units that need to get approval before we then go to HDC for approval for those. We have 6 buildings that already have been approved at HDC, and we are almost ready to get those order forms into the modular home company. We're just going through things like what color do we want the floor, or I guess it's the finish on the floor and the color on the kitchen cabinets and all that kind of stuff. So it's fun stuff. But that's where we are right now. So that's my update. I don't know if Billy wants to add anything to that.
Billy just tried to call me, so I don't know. Billy, can you hear us? I'm not sure what's going on technically. We just lost him. I guess without him, Rima?
I just have a question for Anne. Do you allow pets in these rentals or not? Just
Yeah, I mean, if our rental units, the Housing Nantucket rental units, we do allow pets, and we have a pet policy that anyone who wishes to have a pet must sign. We take a pet deposit, or in some cases we'll increase the rent a little bit to cover any kind of cost that we might have once they move out to refinish floors, or that sort of thing, any kind of pet damage. So in general, we do allow pets, yes.
that's good to know, because I have people that, want to apply but are worried about, pets, but that's great. Wonderful news. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this? Okay, thanks, Anne. And shall I just jump to Dave Tucker on Wildflower? Hi, Dave.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. Hello. Nice
Hi.
to see everybody again. Thanks for the opportunity to give you all a quick update on our Meadows 2 Phase 2A Wildflower Acceleration Project. We are proceeding on all fronts, if you will. The most important one, and unfortunately the most frustrating one, is still waiting for our modular designs to come back through the PFS, BBRS third-party review process. As I indicated in the written update that I conveyed to Ken and Tucker, we are seeing some light at the end of the tunnel there finally, and that we got almost final approval back on our first of the 3 buildings, with just some detail and questions about the HERS rating components that we were able to resolve with some help from Paul Murphy and Steve Welch. So that's good news, in that usually when one gets issued, the next 2 in our case should be much more efficient in terms of when those come out the back end of the BVRS. We brainstormed a little bit with Tucker and Ken, and unfortunately there's kind of these purposeful independent firewalls set up with these BBRS reviews where, as you can imagine, the developer is not supposed to communicate with the independent reviewers, and even the modular companies are not supposed to. So we have to be a little careful there in terms of maintaining that firewall. But we are putting as much pressure as we can through the modular company on these reviewers, given the urgency of our project and our desire to move this along, to still try and hit local building permits at the end of October and occupancy early to mid next spring for all of these 24 units. So appreciate everybody's patience and understanding. And, we've been keeping in touch on the front end here locally with Paul Murphy, and I had a meeting yesterday with the Senior Plus staff with Leslie and Megan on another item, and we discussed this a little bit, and they, and through Andrew's leadership, are ready to help push this through the local. And once we get it into Paul, and Paul's been great, even with the workload that they have over in building of moving these along. So we'll keep pushing. Otherwise, our financing is all set, as we indicated, through Eastern Bank. The financing through the town that you all were generous enough to issue has been put to good use. We are continuing to move ahead on the site work. The next phase there will be the electrical. And as soon as we can get the first of these 3 structures on the island, we will start assembling it. One minor item, but it is significant. We did make a final selection in terms of general contractor, as we noted in our written update. And we've actually selected Seth Adams, the former senior VP of JKS Delbrook, who, as you all will recall, was your general contractor at Sachem's, has split off from JKS Delbrook and started his own construction company and is specializing on work on the islands and the Cape. So we're taking advantage of his expertise, both with modular construction and with the island. So they are going to be the general contractor for these 3 buildings in this phase. And Seth's company is running under the name Pearl Construction. So you'll start to hear that name more often, I think, on the island for both housing and commercial industrial projects. So full speed ahead there. We appreciate everybody's support and continued patience, and everything else is going great in terms of our housing. If you've been out to the site recently, you've seen we are now virtually finished with the infrastructure for our Sandpiper 2, the northern phase of our single family development. We've put a few more of our AMI for sale homes under agreement with support from Tucker and Ken, and from Ann, who is Housing Nantucket is the monitoring agent there. So we've certified a couple of additional buyers who have obtained financing. So all is good. We just can't build it fast enough and accommodate enough people, as you all know. And you guys are working every day to try and help make more progress on that issue. And we appreciate all the support.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions from the board? Okay, I thank you, Dave, very much. Billy's managed to get back in.
Thank you.
Billy, yep. Thanks for coming.
Okay, take
Billy,
care, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Billy, did you want to add anything on 31 Fairgrounds?
I have no idea what Ann said. Ann, I apologize for you speaking on behalf of that after our earlier discussion. I don't know what happened. Did we talk about the disappointing news recently received?
We did not.
Okay, so I would like to speak about that then. And although unexpected, I mean, not unexpected, I should say, it is still disappointing. And I would like to go through just item by item back to the July checklist, which I have in front of me, and respond and rearrange and remanage expectations. So,
hey, Billy.
Yes,
Billy, we're running a little short on time for this meeting today. So if you could just do a quick summary, and then maybe what we can do is ask you to come back to our next meeting and run through this in more detail. Because I know this is brand new information for you, and it might be helpful for you to have a little more time.
very quick, but there were also a couple of things that we could talk about right now, just to manage expectations and not, so. And did you speak about the handicap, the AAB buildings?
Yep. Yep, okay. I mentioned how we're going to be heard soon in Boston, and then also how right now we're looking at our order forms for the modulars and trying to pick out colors and finishes and stuff.
Well, that's correct. In fact, at the end of the day, by the end of the day today, I in fact hope to be writing a check for the deposit for units 1 and 8, which, to remind everybody, are the 2 that face Fairgrounds Road and are right up front. There have been unexpected price increases from the modular developer. unexpected but not anticipated, not unanticipated. Again, this is new to me. It does not track in a straight line. So the cost of the modulars are but one component. And I think that we'll be able to work through this. More importantly is equally as importantly is the delay from end of October to first week of November. The modular boxes beginning to arrive. I believe that will now be mid-December, the second week in December as of this morning. And if anybody wants any detail on that further, I'm happy to provide it offline. I know that, as you mentioned, you are rushed. And I'll just leave it at that. If anybody would like any more detail, I'm available anytime. And that's it.
Thanks, Billy. Any quick questions? And I'm going to keep emphasizing quick from the board. Okay. Look forward to more details.
So,
yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Billy. Okay. So the next item on our agenda, and then Tacoma Green. Tucker, did you want to do a quick update on Tacoma Green?
Sure. We're still awaiting news from the developer just about the extent of the gap.
Okay, thanks. More to come there. And then news on the hiring of the housing and real estate specialists.
Yes, we've had a couple of good candidates apply, and we're in the process of trying to hire someone. So hopefully something good to report at the next meeting.
Terrific, thank you. And staying with you, Tucker, Community Land Trust update.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of interest in seeing a community land trust here on Nantucket. A number of folks have sort of stepped forward expressing interest in this concept, and I think we're very much in the formative stages here, but it would be useful, I think, if the trust were to designate one or two members, perhaps, to represent the trust in discussions as this begins to start to take some shape. I think there's a general consensus that would include this body as well as a lot of other folks, that a private nonprofit organization is going to be able to work much more nimbly and efficiently than like a municipally driven entity. And so it feels like it's going to be in the best interest of the community that something of this nature go in that direction, but I think is equally envisioned as like a public-private type of approach to this. So I think it's important to identify one or two folks from the trust that can be integral parts of the conversation as things start to take shape.
Penny?
Yeah, Tucker,
Yeah.
I'm sure some thought has been given to what other groups are going to have representation. Do you know what the answer to that is?
I think it would be great if we had someone representing the select board as well. I think it would be great if we had representation from one of our leading land conservation organizations, and we obviously want expertise in certain areas. We are fortunate that Philippe Jordy, who runs the Martha's Vineyard Island Housing Trust, has expressed a willingness to serve in call it a formation committee or steering committee, as well as the banker who they work closely with, is the president of Martha's Vineyard Bank, has also indicated a willingness to help in this. So we're going to want legal expertise, real estate expertise represented. So those are some of the groups that we are thinking about.
So I guess as a follow-up through Brooke to you, if there's some sort of, I mean, I'm interested in participating as long as I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah.
So if there's some sort of outline, rough description.
Sure. So I can send along basically a process document that an attorney has just put together for us about these are the things that you need to consider in forming a land trust. And there are subsets of the entire decision process, which can involve both folks who might be, let's say, willing to serve on a steering committee of sorts, as well as on a one-off or ad hoc basis, so that individuals with particular expertise may be willing to lend their time to, say, decisions that need to be made around governance for an entity like this, as an example. So I can get you that, Penny, and please let me know if there are questions that you have, and it would be useful as we're starting to try to move this forward in an efficient manner to have a representative or two identified to, yeah.
So is it fair to, thank you. Is it fair to characterize it as in the incubation stage now?
Yeah, incubating to create one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Yeah.
Rena?
Tucker, did I hear a radio ad that you did? Was this connected to that, or what? I was sort of like, where did that come from?
Yeah. So like I was saying, a number of people have been stepping forward since the Martha's Vineyard trip, wanting to help in whatever ways they can to see this happen. And so I think there's energy out there that we want to tap into, and opportunity being provided to help facilitate getting this created. So a fund has been established at the Community Foundation, for example, with the sole purpose of creating a community land trust. So there now is a vehicle for folks who might want to support an effort like this to direct their contributions. And a generous community member had said that they would like to assist in a big way. I guess I should say in multiple ways, and amongst them was let's start letting people know this is an effort that is underway. So that's where the radio ad came from. As well, the Sconset Chapel had invited me to come and talk to them about housing, and also this effort in particular. So there are a lot of folks stepping forward saying, we would love to see something like this happen. And that's why it's timely to pull what I'll refer to as a steering committee together.
Anybody else from the board? I have a few points to make on this, but so the way I wanted this on the agenda today because the idea of a community land trust has been out there for a while, and it's been investigated sort of independently. And then we talked about it as a board. Where should it live? Should it be a trust project? And then in the meantime, all this community momentum has developed. And so I think we're sort of in this process of still figuring out where it's going to live, and that we have these independent folks who are interested in committing to the creation of this land trust and looking at it from the perspective of let's start from square one and figure out how best to structure this and where should it be housed and how should it be structured from a completely independent perspective with input from the trust. And that's kind of where it sits right now. Now that group might recommend that it comes back under the trust. Who knows? That's not, though I think for reasons of flexibility, probably independent makes more sense. Just my gut tells me that what I understand, but it's sort of like, let's start this as an independent community project and then see where it's best to land. So that's kind of my understanding of where we're at, but the importance of our input is because we are recognized now in the community as sort of the guiding entity for year-round and affordable housing, and centralizing that effort. So making sure that we're participating in this and that it fits in the puzzle of everything else we're doing effectively. So I hope that helps. And I would love, I'm certainly interested in working on this. And Penny's, is there anyone else that's interested in learning more and potentially serving? I think it should be 2 people. So, okay, lots of hands raised. Okay, I see Allie and Dawn. So let's, Dawn, do you want to comment? Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think you and Penny would be great choices. I'm sure that I'll have involvement as a select board member. So I'm happy to defer.
Okay, thanks. And Allie?
I was just going to say, I'm happy to jump in, but I'm also obviously very busy. So if there's someone with more time as well, same, I'll defer, but I'm happy if there's a spot.
Okay.
So
yeah, go ahead, Tucker.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair. So I just would say that I think that from the standpoint of, call it the steering committee, maybe there's, a 1 or 2 trust representatives, call it formally. But as I mentioned, there are subcommittees, if you will, to the work that needs to be done to establish one, sort of 3 principal areas. And for sure, there will be people who have important input to give to those particular areas that aren't necessarily a formal steering committee member, if you will. So there, there is opportunity really to get input from everybody.
Terrific. So I'm guessing the October agenda is getting really full, but I'm hoping to hear back, and maybe there's a formal request at our October meeting to have members of this board identified formally. Penny?
Yeah, just one last question. Is the land bank going to have representation?
I can say that during the course of a 200-mile run last weekend, invited the executive director of the land bank to have representation. So I'm certainly hoping so.
Thank you.
Yeah. The concept here is broad community input and a sort of Switzerland mentality around it being neutral and new and, from scratch. So that, anyway, so as many perspectives as possible are brought to the table, but it still gets done effectively. So that's the hope, and fast, if we can do it fast. Get people, again, in housing as quickly as possible. So, all right, great. I know we have an executive session to get to tonight, tonight, see where my brain is. CPC application, Tucker?
Just briefly, I think you all received a copy of it. We are requesting a $5 million, another $5 million bonding. And if anyone has questions, I could answer them, but otherwise, I believe on October 5th, we will be going before the CPC for the interviews or for the interview. And it would be, again, useful to have at least one or two trust representatives designated to accompany me for that presentation. And if everybody would like to be there, that I think that would be fine, but we would need to post a meeting, I believe. And
It will be a virtual presentation.
It'll be virtual, but we would need to post a meeting if we're going to be more than a quorum of us.
Penny?
Yeah, Brooke, through you to Tucker, I think we should just post the meeting as a
Okay.
precaution.
Yep.
And I'll certainly do my best to participate.
Okay, yeah, it's probably worth doing, and then we can call the meeting to order if it's necessary and circle about who's going to say what for our actual presentation to the CPC. So, okay, great. Moving on to FY 2023 budget. Tucker, you want to talk about timelines and should we take this up in more detail at our next meeting?
Yeah, certainly we can, we'll talk more about our next meeting, but just, so right now, I just want to basically make people aware that right now, I believe that town administration is planning for this coming year as they did last year. They implemented last year the $2 million housing office funding in the town administration budget. So they are planning to have that same level of funding for this coming year. You'll recall at the 2021 annual town meeting, there were additional sources of funds from the debt exclusion article 24 of $7.5 million, as well as a separate bonding authorization under Article 10 for $6.5 million. The debt service for both of those articles does not come out of the $2 million annual budget. That those are separate separate monies that service that. So the point is that right now, with what we're requesting of the CPC and with what we have on hand still to deploy, we do not have, call it a big ask beyond the $2 million before town administration. So to the extent that we think there should be one, that's something we want, we have to bring forward relatively quickly. I'm not sure whether we need to, from the standpoint of the resources we have available to support the projects that we have on our near-term radar screen, assuming the CPC delivers on our request. But this is a discussion that the board should have.
Any questions for Tucker or comments? Rima?
Should we at least ask for funding for debt service? I mean,
that's already approved.
That's
for
already,
the,
okay, so
yeah.
we have that.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay. However, being able to explain what it would be for is and I think the thing that's challenging for me is there's some things we don't know, like what is the number for 6 fairgrounds increased cost? What is, there's some information we're going to be finding out as we work our way through this budget cycle. So it's a bit of, we won't know until we know. And, maybe just leaving room in the conversation with town administration that, if this happens, then we might need this, if that, and obviously we have some things to talk about in executive session as well. So, any other questions on that?
Not on that. Can we have a 5-minute break between these meetings?
Yes. Yes. So let's just move through the rest of this agenda. Other business, upcoming meetings. Everybody sees the schedule of planned meetings. Are there any additional board comments? I have one. Tucker?
Well, just regarding the upcoming meetings, so we have a meeting scheduled for next week, which really was put on the agenda with a sole purpose in mind. That purpose we're addressing in executive session today. So we do not technically need to meet next week unless the board would like to.
Penny?
Sorry. Yes, I just feel like our agendas are getting so long. Maybe it would be to our benefit to meet next week, so October is not so hefty. Not that I want more meetings, believe me. I'll defer, of course, to what everybody else wants to do.
The challenge for me is that getting an agenda together and getting people, moving from this meeting to the next meeting and people pulling the information together, it's probably pretty short notice.
Okay, no problem.
I mean, Tucker, we have the CPC the first Tuesday in October, right? So it's not possible to use that date. So why don't we look to the October agenda and see if maybe calling another meeting in October makes sense. If that looks hefty, we can split that into 2 meetings. Tucker and Brian and I can look at that. But so that speaks to canceling the meeting that we had on the schedule for next week and maybe replacing it with a second meeting in October.
I think that makes a lot of sense. The meeting for next week has not been posted yet, but I will cancel that calendar invite that you all have for next week. Another sort of to the point of we might want another October meeting. Ken and I had the benefit of hearing a presentation that Kamal previewed for us as the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and it really was excellent. And so we would like to, I know the board has had a strong interest in this topic, and so we would like to invite Kamal to come to our October meeting to give this presentation. And I just want to make space enough for it because it probably will take a half an hour to really allow him to both go through it and have an interactive discussion about a number of things that are brought up in the presentation. It's really very, very well done and meaty, and you're going to want to get involved in the discussion.
It was an extraordinary presentation.
Okay, great. All right, so we will poll the group for a second date in October. I think that sounds like it's going to be necessary. Given everything I've said, we need an update in October just in the last hour and a half. So, okay, terrific. Any other board comments? I have one. The applications for the Habitat homes are up and available online and due on November 17th. So spread the word. Those are 80% AMI units. There are 3 of them. And the applications are available in English, Spanish, and Portuguese on the Habitat website. So spread the word on that. Okay, Penny, you want to?
I'll make, yeah. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the regular meeting and reconvene an executive session for the purpose of considering the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property where an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the public body.
Not to return to open meeting.
Not to return
just-
to open meeting.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Allison. All those in favor, Penny,
Aye.
Dawn,
Aye, sorry.
Dave,
Aye.
Rima,
Aye.
Ally,
Aye.
and I vote aye. Okay, so let's say 1:05 PM. I mean, yeah, PM.
2:05.
See you. 2:05. Don't do me with the calendar. See